When we consider our lives and how we measure our existence and its meaning, often we expend a significant amount of energy on the different markers that we believe represent the most significant milestones. Some presumably joyous, like the graduations, a marriage, career promotions, and some more painful, like failures in our personal or professional lives, diagnoses of illnesses, losing the people we love. It's not just that we note the milestone itself, but we orient ourselves around these milestones too, preparing as we approach them, searching for them to appear on the horizon. And so too, we watch them slowly disappear from the rear view mirror gaze of our lives, often assuming that how we navigate each milestone in the build-up, experience, and then in retrospect is ultimately what matters. This milestone centering shouldn't be minimized or understood as the calculation system just for people as individuals. Rather, it serves as the foundation, the root structure that nourishes so many systems, industries, and institutions in our Western world. I did a little research recently on the history of milestones. They date back to the 3rd century in Rome. Having built a massive 53,000-mile network of roads, the Romans determined the need to place stone markers every 1,000 paces, or just under 5,000 feet. Travelers across Europe were then able to use these stones placed at such intervals to mark their progress from 1 mile to the next, each one literally and figuratively now to a milestone. But of note is that more than 200 years before that, Augustus established what was the very first milestone, as it were, before there were any others, with what came to be known as the Golden Milestone, likely a gilded bronze column, and this was regarded as the point from which all the principal roads of Rome would diverge. But this first milestone didn't mark the measurement of a mile from one point to another. Instead, it marked mile 0, and it symbolized the center of the road network, both leading away from the capital city, but also the place where all the roads met as well. You know that expression, all roads lead to Rome? Well, that literally comes from this. So this first milestone, the golden one, the orientation for all the others, ultimately marked both the start and the finish, thus also everything in between. I've been thinking a lot about this contrast, the difference between the preset milestones peppered along the way on the one hand, and the fixed center point, a fixed milestone on the other. And how each of these invites us into a choice for how we want to see and understand not just the trajectory of our lives, but perhaps more importantly, how we live that life each and every step along the way. Not just when we reach a given milestone, but also in those moments in between. If you think about it, that's really where most of our lives are lived, not in the milestone moments, but rather in the middle, the murky, unmarked, perhaps even uncharted times. The milestones may provide us our clearest orientation points. But what of the other 999 paces to walk between one and the next? After all, you don't see a lot of greeting cards wishing a couple happy 3 2/5 years of marriage. Or on the more solemn side, you don't really see a lot of support systems built into helping a person navigate the time between the test result and the diagnosis, for example. I wonder if there is a way that we might orient ourselves differently, that we might consider a different route system or trajectory for our lives that wasn't quite so linear and therefore inherently limited. What would or could it look like if we were able to live in such a way that each and every moment simply because we were living it, was a milestone in and of itself. Every moment a beginning and an ending and a beginning. Well, as you might have guessed, Judaism offers us just such an invitation. In fact, unlike Western tradition, Judaism itself is structured foundationally around the notion that the only milestone that ultimately has elevated bearing over anything is the time in which we experience life, what we might understand as the golden milestone of our existence. Judaism, in nearly every text and teaching, from ancient to contemporary, insists that if you are alive and you are conscious, that each and every moment is a milestone worth planting, worth claiming, worth setting for yourself. It doesn't matter whether it's a moment of pleasure or pain, a moment of clarity or confusion. Each moment, because we are living in it, proves fully a marker in and of itself. If you're breathing and you are conscious, there is something to be raised up, something to mark a learning, a changing, a growing, a deepening. Consider the 18th century wisdom of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev in Kedushat Levi, who invites us to reorient ourselves, not around our achievements, the long game of our personal evolution, but instead around the possibility that each and every moment, each and every breath represents the potential for a complete and total transformation. With each exhalation, the end of whatever was before, and each inhalation, a fully new creation. I'm not sure that Howard Thurman, the famous theologian and civil rights activist, was familiar with Kedushat Levi, but he expressed its most core opportunity when he famously introduced the directive for us to look well to the growing edge. He wrote, "Look well to the growing edge. All around us, worlds are dying and new worlds are being born. All around us, life is dying and life is being born. The fruit ripens on the tree. The roots are silently at work in the darkness of the earth against the time when there shall be new leaves, fresh blossoms, green fruit. Such is the growing edge. It is the extra breath from the exhausted lung, the one more thing to try when all else has failed. The upward reach of life when weariness closes in upon all endeavors. This is the basis of hope in moments of despair, the incentive to carry on when times are out of joint and men have lost their reason, the source of confidence when worlds crash and dreams whiten to ash. The birth of a child, life's most dramatic answer to death. This is the growing edge incarnate. Look well to the growing edge. What might our lives look like, feel like? How might we live them if we seize the opportunity to right now look well to our growing edge? If we looked less for the preset milestones, and instead if we could see ourselves as the setters of our own milestones, rooted by the only true milestone that matters, the fullest span of each of our lives, however that unfolds. What if instead of spending our time preparing to reach whatever we perceive, hope, or fear is down the road 999 paces away, we instead spent our lives fully immersed in each and every pace we took, radically present to the experience in any and every given moment? And what if we measured our lives not in terms of a line drawn from one milestone to the next, but instead by how full we lived each moment that presented itself to us and understood all of that as a gift? Shabbat Shalom.